What's going on, guys? Jim Alexander here with Real Talker. And yes, I'm doing my first and only mock draft 2024 for the NFL draft. It's my 1.0 and one and only mock draft that I'm doing. It's the first one I've done, so this is fun and exciting that I get to share it. I've looked over the players, the teams, studied some of this stuff. It's been a long process. This draft season actually is long. You think about like the NFL playoffs, Super Bowl, but then you get free agency, you have these months, and that's all you're sort of talking about is the draft and waiting for those 3 days in Detroit this year that will shape franchises, make careers, and it's going to be a lot of fun. People love the draft. It's just one of the most exciting events on the NFL calendar. I'd say besides the Super Bowl, probably draft is the second biggest event in the NFL. Maybe also opening weekend too of the NFL season, but draft is where it's at. And this year is a monster draft. It's in Detroit, and it's fitting that it's coming off of one of the best Lions seasons in Lions history, which is saying something because that team has been so bad for so long. But this draft is stacked. I mean, it's really, really offensively supercharged. Tons of offensive talent, some good defenders there, but if you're looking for strengths, it's absolutely on offense. And we're going to see some major superstars coming out of this draft. And not only college superstars, but guys that are going to be superstars in the NFL. This is one of the better drafts in recent memory, too. Talk about offensive talent and just potential Hall of Fame talent, too, that is slated to potentially be drafted here and develop into that on the next level. So it's an exciting draft, huge names, big stars. I'm gonna do a quick overview, then just go into my mock and reveal the picks and how things are gonna happen. And yes, I will do trades in my mock draft and projecting certain things that could happen. And I feel good about it. But this draft is obvious strength is at the QBs at the top. It's a rich QB draft in a sense. It's not deep. Uh, There are some guys in later rounds I might touch on too, sleepers and things like that to look out for, but and potential busts too. So we'll do this on the fly. But top heavy, you have three studs at QB, potentially four with JJ McCarthy. And no, I'm not repping Michigan. It's just green fluorescent color shirt. But you also have a very strong and deep wide receiver draft. So the receivers are just next level here. The top three guys are just superstars, but it's deep also. You can get quality number two, number three, even some number one receivers too in this draft deep into it. It's pretty strong on offensive linemen, especially tackles, guard slash tackles, and that's early on too. It falls off after the first round, but when you're talking about first round offensive linemen, it's really it's good. It's pretty deep and heavy, but it's top tier talent, then it falls off. Also, when we're looking at positions that aren't as featured here. It's not a great tight end draft besides Brock Bowers, who's the stud name here. It's kind of a weak and not deep tight end draft. It's also not a strong running back draft. Last year we had a good running back draft. You have Bijan Robinson, you know, go there. Jameer Gibbs in the first round, early in the first round too. So uh, that hasn't happened in years. I think obviously the running backs kind of fell off, but there's been a lot of second round running backs that have totally hit. But this year you're probably not seeing a guy till maybe the late second, probably in the third is where there's going to be a run on running back. So It's not good when it comes to that. It's also a really good draft and deep draft, and especially kind of like the offensive lineman when it comes to first round. A lot of talent there at corner. Some stud names, and you'll see in my mock, a lot of them will be coming off the board in the first round. So good corner draft, good offensive lineman draft, uh, phenomenal receiver draft, and quarterback too. If you need a quarterback, this is a good one. Um, you know, top three are studs. 4 to 6 are starting kind of quarterbacks here too. So look at that. And defensively, otherwise, too, there's some good pass rushers too. It's a pretty solid pass rusher draft too, so it's good. Not superstar sort of pass rushers, but really good quality starters that could be Pro Bowlers here. So it's a good pass rusher. You got a couple defensive tackles that could make some waves here. Linebackers, you're probably not going to see one until the second round, so I don't even have one mocked. Surprise, surprise, in mine for the first, and I'm just going to do a first round draft here. And when it comes to safeties, also very weak safety draft. So that kind of covers it. And let's get into the mock. Okay, no surprise, the number one pick, the Chicago Bears. They traded it last year. As a Bears fan, this is cool to have 2 times number one picks. They got a haul last year and it really transformed their team and ended up giving them this number one pick because of last year's trade. So with the number one pick, the Chicago Bears select Caleb Williams out of USC. There's no question here. On some of these picks, I'm also going to give what I would draft for this team and what should happen and what will happen. This is what will happen. Okay. Caleb Williams is going number one to the Chicago Bears, a potential Patrick Mahomes-esque sort of talent. We've heard about him. He's rare when it comes to his tools, just the bend of his arm and the angles he throws in. The guy is just a wizard on broken plays, sort of when things get scattered, he gets real good. So on the run, just look up some of this guy's clips. He's just next level talent. He's been touted. He's been coming for a few years. People have been talking him up, but Caleb Williams is that guy. Probably the closest thing to Mahomes since Mahomes was drafted, right? That level of talent, that sort of unique arm. Sure, there's some knocks on him. He's not the tallest guy, about 6'1", but he's got a good body frame, so that's not an issue like some of the smaller QBs, like last year's number one pick, Bryce Young, who's just tiny frame, looks fragile in a sense, and he did not have a very good rookie season, did Bryce Young, but Caleb is just built differently. He's sort of a big kink of a guy. He can run, he can scramble. I think that's a kind of an underrated part of his game too. The drawbacks, people are trying to find things as his attitude and potentially prima donna diva thing. I just think they have nothing to find on this guy to peg him. He is worthy of a number one pick, and he's one of those rare picks. So the Bears are very lucky that they have the number one pick in this draft, because some drafts you just don't get that top level number one pick. This is the draft you want to have the number one pick. So easy. Bears get their franchise QB, and hopefully quickly he will become the greatest QB in the franchise history. Number two. So we're knowing this has been sort of the debate here. Washington, what are they going to do? Is it Jaden Daniels? Is it Drake May? They're going quarterback here for sure. They shipped out Sam Howell. They got basically Marcus Mariota on a roster. It's not reassuring. So they're drafting a QB here. The consensus has been Jaden Daniels everywhere. It seems it's almost like a lock. I don't think so. I think it's Drake May. I think people have just kind of, for some reason, started finding a scapegoat in this draft, and Drake May has become that he didn't have a great 23 after a really good 22. Same thing with Caleb, but Drake had nothing to work with at North Carolina last season. Just lost a lot of talent to the league. just was working with nothing really, and his play suffered. I still think you kind of look at the tape when he did have talent in 22 and he was just phenomenal. He might need a little bit time to sit. Washington isn't an ideal situation because they're probably going to look to play him. I would have him sit at least half a season, learn a little bit still. But Drake May is going to be the guy. There's a reason they shipped out Sam Howell, who was the guy that Drake May replaced at North Carolina, and was the quarterback for the Redskins. Redskins, no, it's the Commanders or Washington team. They had so many name changes in the last few years. Washington football team. They shipped out Sam Howell, so you would have thought that they didn't want to sort of have two good friends, Drake May and Sam Howell, kind of be placed in an awkward situation on the same team here, one coming in to replace the other. So they shipped it out Sam Howell for a reason here, and I think it's to clear a spot for Drake May. Otherwise, why wouldn't you keep Sam Howell? He's certainly a better option than Marcus Mariota at this point. So for me, that's signaled that it's Drake May, and I'm going to go against the popular belief. I think it's Drake May, and I have him as the second best quarterback here. Now, number 3, this is where the surprise starts. So the Patriots need a quarterback desperately. They've been talked about as a trading spot. I don't understand why, because that team does need a lot of help, but you need a quarterback. You don't have one. You have Jacoby Brissett. You shipped out Mac Jones, and you really don't have anyone. So for them, it is time to get a quarterback, the future face of the franchise, while Jacoby Brissett can kind of maybe mold that quarterback, be a good mentor. He's great in that role. For me, I don't think you trade this pick away. I think if you're a Patriots, you need that quarterback. You never know if you're going to have a top pick in the next draft. There's going to be a quarterback worthy of being that pick. You're getting here one of the top 3 premier quarterbacks, potential to take one. So you take one. But this is the Patriots under a new regime, not Bill Belichick. So guess what they're going to do? They're going to surprise everyone with the first shocker of the night and take J.J. McCarthy from Michigan. Yes, J.J. McCarthy's been making waves as the guy moving up the boards. He's kind of an unknown in a way. We haven't seen much of JJ McCarthy in Michigan. We haven't seen him. We know he's a leader. He's won a national championship. He can drive the ball downfield. But the thing about JJ McCarthy, there's just not much of a sample size. How many times has he brought a team come back? They haven't really had to come back against anyone last year. They just had a perfect season onto a national championship. He hasn't had that experience where he's faced adversity, like Caleb Williams, who was on a terribly defensive USC team that would give up 40 regularly, and he's constantly trying to will the team from behind. He needs to keep up on every possession because his team's going to give it up. So JJ McCarthy, we haven't seen that adversity, but he's got the leadership quality. He's got the stamp of approval from his coach, Jim Harbaugh. But how will he translate? He's a hot name right now. He definitely has some tools there. He's mobile. He's got a solid arm. He's a natural leader, good IQ. He's got the things you want in a quarterback. He's got that winning sort of thing. So I think the Patriots have seen that for many years with another guy from Michigan, Tom Brady, that winning sort of mentality. Might have not been the most talented with an electric arm, but he had that it factor. They feel J.J. McCarthy might have the it factor, and I think the Patriots will take him, maybe with a nudge from Tommy, in Robert Kraft's ear. I think that's a big surprise. First big surprise is that the Patriots pass on Jaden Daniels and take J.J. McCarthy. Now, that leaves us number 4. Are there going to be 4 quarterbacks taken in a row for the first time ever? Yes, because it's a great quarterback class. So there's going to be someone to move up. Arizona's that prime spot at number 4. But here's the thing. I think Arizona's not going to move far back. Minnesota has been the talking point here to move in to get that quarterback. They desperately need one after Kirk Cousins left them. But Arizona does not want to miss out on the premier superstar receivers here, and they need one desperately. They are bare bones when it comes to receivers, you know, in that they have to work with for Kyler Murray. So they need some offensive firepower. They need some help at receiver. They have no one. Rondale Moore's gone. Uh, you know, you have Hollywood Brown gone. Just no one there. They need a receiver desperately. So I do see them collecting some picks here. They do have 2 first-round picks. One they were hoping to be much higher, but Houston had a great season, so that pushed Arizona into the 20s. But I think they're going to add some more picks here, and I think a natural trade down is only 2 spots where they still get a chance to get one of those premier receivers here. And I think the team that jumps up is the New York Giants. I think the Daniel Jones experiment has not worked. They overpaid him. They can cut him after next season, and you know, not take a huge salary cap dump. And Daniel Jones just isn't the guy. He's a fine spot starter. He's just sort of a good backup quarterback. He gets injured a lot. He's just not it. I mean, he had that one good year that he got paid. But besides that, I just don't believe him. I don't think Brian Dable believes in him or the New York Giants. And I think they will see the opportunity to get Jayden Daniels here, who on many boards is a number 2 player in this whole draft. So I think Jayden Daniels right there. Do a quick flip here from 6 to 4. Not going to have to give up much. Probably will cost them a second-round pick, either a future 25 or 24 second-round pick to jump 2 spots here from 6 to 4 with Arizona. I think Arizona doesn't fall much behind, picks up a second-round pick, and still gets their at least number 2 or 3 receiver choosing, because the number 1 receiver is going at number 5 to the LA Chargers, and that's Marvin Harrison. A dream scenario for the Chargers here, having the best receiver, and many say also the number 1 or 2 prospect in this draft overall too. Depends how you want to put Jayden Daniels. Caleb, it's pretty much Caleb's number 1 unanimously, but Jayden Daniels at 2, Marvin Harrison at 2. Marvin Harrison, the best receiver on the board. This team needs a receiver. They've lost their 2 top guys, Mike Williams now in New York with the Jets, Keenan Allen in Chicago. They really don't have much there. Quentin Johnston is there, but he's so far been a disappointment. He's been their first-round pick a couple years ago, but he has not lived up to that. Just injuries and just can't get on the field much and hasn't had any production. So I would not put all my eggs into Quentin Johnston basket here, because he has not proven to be that guy. If he develops, great, you have a bonus. But right now, you just have Joshua Palmer and Quentin Johnston as your top 2 guys. And Palmer's a great number 3. He's not a 1 or 2. Quentin Johnston, we don't know what he is. Maybe he's nothing potentially, or maybe he could be a great number 2, or maybe a 1, but that's too much of a gamble. You get a sure thing in Marvin Harrison for Justin Herbert to throw to. You need some weapons. You lost his top 2 guys. You can't leave Justin Herbert now without Eckler too. He's just bare on offensive weapons here. You got to give him a sure thing in Marvin Harrison Jr. So that'll be a dream scenario for the Chargers, and they're not trading out of that pick if Marvin Harrison's there. So that's the pick at number 5. Number 6, Arizona misses out on Marvin Harrison. They made that trade 2 spots with the Giants, but they get their choice still. To some, also a potentially number 1 guy out of these receivers, Malik Nabers. You talk about getting some juice into that Arizona team with Kyler Murray. You're getting juice with Malik Nabers here. I think that'll be a fantastic pickup for them to get Malik Nabers, and that's a sure thing. Arizona is running up to that podium for Malik Nabers at number 6. Now, number 7 was a natural call for the Titans to take an offensive tackle that they need desperately. So I'm going to do something similar here, what I just did with Arizona and the Giants. I'm going to make a trade where they still get their guy, Tennessee, and getting a pick also out of it. And the team that needs to jump them here is the Chicago Bears. Yes, they've been mocked and talked about for Rome Odunze. I don't think Rome Odunze makes it to 9. I think someone trades up with the Falcons at number 8 to scoop him up. Maybe a team doing that too. I think the jumping one team thing is popular here. It seems like that works out a lot of these trades. I think the Jets would jump the Bears at 9 and trade with Atlanta for Rome Odunze. So I think the Bears need to jump ahead from a team like the Jets or another oncoming team. And that trade partner would be then Tennessee at number 7, because I think the natural trade partner here is Falcons from these other teams moving on up. So I see the Bears trading number 9 for number 7, getting Rome Odunze to pair him with Keenan Allen, DJ Moore, and an absolute explosive offense for Caleb Williams. The 1-2 punch of Caleb Williams and Rome Odunze in this draft will be a historic haul for Chicago. They'll probably have to give up a 3 and a 4. I'd say they don't have many draft picks in this draft. They don't have a second round pick. Not sure if they have a third. I think that was, or they might not have a 4 because that was traded for Keelan Allen, but maybe a future 4. But I see about a compensation of a 3 and a 4 here to move up 2 spots. Then at number 8, Atlanta can go with kind of what they wanted to and need is a pass rusher and some defense. The first defender is going to come off the board here, and the guy that's been talked about, Dallas Turner here from Alabama, is the guy I feel adds some pass rushing juice for Atlanta, who desperately needs defensive help. Raheem Morris is coming in, a defensive coach. They've done a lot of damage this offseason, shoring up that offense with Kirk Cousins and Darnell Mooney, the guys that they already had, Drake London and Bijan Robinson, and I think they got Rondale Moore too. I think that was Atlanta, if I'm not mistaken here. But they've added offensive weapons this offseason, and I expect them to finally get a defender here for Raheem Morris, and they need some pass rush, and they'll be in the form of the one and only Dallas Turner, who's got a lot of juice coming off the edge and has got that athleticism bend that you kind of look for in a pass rusher. So that's pick a number 8. Number 9 now, Titans back at it. They still have the offensive tackle that they wanted, Joe Alt. So they would have taken him at 7. Here they take him at 9. Makes perfect sense because Atlanta didn't seem like the team that would go offensive tackle. I mean, he's a worthy player of going, so you could see maybe Atlanta shock and go with Alt, but I just think their defensive needs are so much more important. So Joe Alt makes perfect sense with Peter Skoronski last year being drafted by Titans. They shore up that left side of the line for Will Levis, who's shown a lot of promise last year's second-round pick. So Will Levis gets some protection. The team had one of the worst offensive linemen in the league, and right there you had 2 young foundational pieces. You know, last year's Skoronski, and now you add a complete stud in Joe Alt to man that left side, and that's it. That's an easy decision. Number 10, then. I see the need for an offensive tackle to protect Aaron Rodgers. That offensive line was bad in New York last year. They did do a lot of changes. Elijah Vera Tucker is going to be back from injury, hopefully return to his form. They did add Tyron Smith from the Dallas Cowboys. He's an aging vet, but a Hall of Fame type of player, a perennial Pro Bowler. And Tyron Smith. So we'll see if he still has enough left for a year, maybe, or 2. He's faced some injuries too, but they're banking on injury. They added Moses Morgan, I believe it was, from Baltimore. They added John Simpson from Baltimore to shore up the offensive line. They had I think Joe Tipman last year The center from Wisconsin, was on the Jets. So I know they drafted a young center. I think it was him. So looks a lot better than it was last year for sure. But they're banking on eight. I mean, these guys are, Moses. You're looking at Tyron Smith. They're older. They're aging. So can they hold up for 1 year? That's putting a lot of stock into hoping these very good veterans stay healthy and still productive. I think they'll do that. The smart move would probably be getting that offensive line. You can never have too many offensive line, especially premier ones that are available at this spot still. To protect Rodgers, it would make sense to me, but I think they're just going to get that juice for more offense. And you can't blame them because they do need someone opposite Garrett Wilson. They signed Mike Williams, so I thought it was a good enough move. But once again, are you banking on Mike Williams' health? A lot of moves that the Jets made are going to be banking on health of these veterans that are coming off injuries. So I think they add the juice at tight end, and that's Brock Bowers. Brock Bowers here, number 10 to the New York Jets. Brock Bowers is a pretty much a George Kittle clone if you're looking for one. He's a do-it-all, great pass catcher, just good speed, just a sure hands. He is George Kittle. Whatever you see in George Kittle, it's pretty much Brock Bowers is the comp to him. And man, I could see Aaron Rodgers pining for that tight end, that weapon. That would really disrupt things and kind of open up Garrett Wilson too, because you need to cover up Brock Bowers. So Brock Bowers is the pick here. More weapons for Aaron. Number 11. And here is another trade. I see a lot of trades in the top sort of 12 here happening. I think teams will move on, trying to get the guys they want here in the top 10. Just outside of the 10 here, I have Minnesota Vikings not getting the top 4 quarterbacks here, not feeling that Bo Nix or Michael Penix are worth the 11th pick here. You could probably get him later in this draft and in this first round. I think they trade out of this pick, Minnesota, and Philly's the trade partner. That's Howie Roseman's always good for a trade up. And Howie Roseman comes up here, gets his corner, Quinyon Mitchell from Toledo, an absolute stud, great pro day, great numbers. His tape is awesome. He just produced everywhere. And you think about, okay, Toledo, what's the level of competition? He dominated. That's what you look for in low level competition. If you're not in the, Division One, SEC, Big Ten, you are looking for smaller school guys to be dominate in their leagues, and he did that. The measurables are there, the athleticism. He's got the numbers. There's really no knock on Quinyon Mitchell besides small schools, and we've seen a lot of guys over the years come out of smaller schools and become studs and stars. Ben Roethlisberger, Miami of Ohio, another Ohio school, small school, turn into an absolute Hall of Famer. So you do have the smaller school guys. Come look at a guy like DeMarcus Ware. I believe it was Troy that he came out of. Hall of Famer. So doesn't mean you're at a small school you can't produce. The tape, I always believe the tape. If he produces, if this guy is that, and especially if his numbers test out good, smaller school stuff can translate if the guy is an absolute stud. And I think Quinyon Mitchell is, and everyone sees that. And I think the Philadelphia Eagles need that secondary help because they were struggling in that secondary last year. I think some of their corners kind of showed some age there, and they did have problems with after letting go CJ Gardner-Johnson. He's back now in Philadelphia, probably playing the nickel, but you need to shore up a young corner, and Philadelphia loves their corners. Two things they always love is pass rush, defensive linemen, really, and corners. That's a Howie Roseman special. So I think they pick one up here and add insurance and a stud here in Quinyon Mitchell. Number 12, we have the Denver Broncos. And I think also here they could take a Bo Nix And I think that's the guy that would fit Sean Payton and he likes, but they can get him a little later. And I feel like you don't want to go too far out here because I think Bo Nix is a first rounder, but I think they do a small trade here with New Orleans, moving up to 12 to get their offensive lineman to protect Derek Carr. They've had a lot of injuries, Ryan Ramczyk and um, Penning not working out really last year. They've always been investing in offensive line. That's been their kind of philosophical organizational thing is drafting O-line. So I think they move up to make sure they get the next best guy here, and it's Talise Fuaga from Oregon State, absolute mauler, a guy that's super versatile, can go inside out. You can use him at guard, at tackle. He's just kind of a do-it-all. He's going to be productive on the next level. He's ultimately best at guard, but you can also play him at tackle. And I think that versatility is really going to be important for the Saints, and they want to lock down a guy. And trading up a couple spots with Denver seems like the logical thing here. Probably not having to give up maybe a third or a fourth. So there's that. Number 13 here, we're down to the Raiders. Do they take Michael Penix? I think it's going to be alluring, but also you need to shore up that offensive line. You have Colton Miller as a stud left tackle, but otherwise you kind of have a shaky line there. And whoever's going to play behind it, whether it's going to be, a guy like O'Connell again, Aiden O'Connell, or you're going to have the newly brought in Gardner Minshew Mania, or you're going to have that draft pick. I think you need the protection. I think you have tons of value here in the top. You need to get your offensive lineman in the top 20 here because they fall off quickly, the quality of him. And I think they go JC Latham from Alabama here. Big tackle, powerful, just polished. And I think he can be their right tackle or left tackle. Probably move him to right with Colton Miller at left. And you have your bookends. They're set for the future. So I think Raiders go offensive line. Makes sense. Antonio Pierce kind of likes that, rugged style of lineman. And I think he goes with one in JC Latham here. Number 14, the Broncos back on the clock after making that, quick trade with the Saints, 2 spots over. And I think they take their guy. They take Bo Nix here at 14. They get a little bit of compensation here, and they still end up with their guy, Bo Nix, at number 14 to the Broncos, which I think makes sense. And they need that quarterback because I don't think Jarrett Stidham and the newly acquired today, just breaking news, Zach Wilson. I mean, what are you vying here for? The number 3 quarterback? You need these guys have not succeeded anywhere. I mean, they like Stidham for whatever reason, and he's shown a little flash here and there, but never really with the Raiders and then with the Patriots, but never really shown enough to warrant any sort of idea that he's going to be a number 1 starter walking in. So no, we have here Bo Nix seems to fit the style that Sean Payton would. He could mold him. He's that kind of rhythm passer that they like. The comp kind of maybe a Tua would be a comp to Bo Nix. He's mobile, had a great seasons in Oregon. I like Bo Nix here with Sean Payton. I think he could be that solid starting quarterback to kind of fortify things for him. Not maybe a superstar, but a guy with potential, a young guy with potential, 24 years old. And I think Sean Payton can mold his guy here on a rookie contract. So Bo Nix is the guy. I don't think they take a chance and wait later because they're going to lose out. And at least the Raiders have a guy like Gardner Minshew. No one here is proven on a Broncos with Zach Wilson and Jarrett Stidham. So there we go. Number 15, the Colts. Chris Ballard loves his athletic, trades guys, and I think a good one and a really solid player here. And they always need corners, and I think a corner is the way to go here for the Indianapolis Colts at 15. Terrion Arnold from Alabama's the guy. So the second corner, kind of it's close between him and Quinyon Mitchell at corner. It depends how kind of you like style wise. He's fluid. He's he's a smart corner. He's experienced here, and Terrion Arnold, I think he'll definitely add to that secondary of the Colts, who need some help on defense, and it makes sense that they would get that one of the top corners on draft here at 15, which is pretty good value. Usually don't get that in most years. Number 16, it's a natural fit. They love their offensive lineman up in Seattle. John Schneider is going to take one with local ties, and that's Troy Fautanu from Washington, guy at their back door, basically. Another guy here that's versatile, physical, tough. You like that. They've drafted offensive linemen. This really would fortify their offensive line. And whoever is behind it, will it be Gino or whoever's there in backing him up, or maybe Sam Howell too, who's now in Seattle. So you have Gino and Sam Howell, and whoever wins out that competition or performs better, they're going to be behind a good offensive line. Troy Fautanu makes sense. His offensive coordinator Grubb was his coach in Washington. So it makes sense that would be the move here. So that's easy. Number 17, the Jaguars. Boy, they can go multiple routes, corner. But I think the more glaring need here is they've lost a receiver, a big time receiver here in Calvin Ridley, that's now gone in Tennessee to their division rival. You need to replace him. I mean, yeah, they still have a deep receiving core, but who's your number one? Calvin Ridley was your number one guy. You have Zay Jones still. I mean, they did sign the free agent receiver from Buffalo, slipping my mind right now. But you have a bunch of number 2/3 guys here. You definitely need a number one, and I think that number one is Brian Thomas Jr. from LSU. Crazy big play receiver, great speed, just a big time playmaking receiver. You want a deep ball, Trevor Lawrence, someone for you to catch. Brian Thomas is that guy. He's sort of a one-year wonder, but he was on that. Can you imagine starting opposite of Malik Neighbors and Jaden Daniels throwing the ball to you? It was an explosive offense there at LSU. But I think the value's there. Like I said, he's a big play receiver, which is something they need technically. They have a lot of sort of possession receivers there. Gabe Davis is the receiver there that they signed, which Gabe Davis, solid, okay too. A great number 3 guy. If you have a number 1 guy, he could probably be your number 2. If you have a stud number 1. But you need more, and I think that'll add depth, and they'll push Gabe to a number 3 role probably. And you would be set there at receiver, and you need that young kind of playmaker for Trevor Lawrence. I think receiver's the bigger need, especially after they lost Calvin Ridley. I think they go with Brian Thomas Jr. There to Jacksonville, and they've probably done a good scouting report on LSU players. They're close by. Not too far from Jacksonville there, so it makes sense to me. Now, we're getting to number 18, and there's a lot of value still here. The Bengals, they could go multiple ways too, but I think the most important thing we learned is fortify that offensive line for Joe Burrow, who's coming back from an injury. They could go receiver here, but I still think they have T. Higgins for this year. He's still going to be here with the team, so I don't think that's a pressing need this year, maybe more next year. The guy that they need to go here, which makes a lot of sense to me, that's still on the board, is Olu Fashanu from Penn State, who was coming into this year, was the number 1 ranked tackle. And we were talking about early on this, into the college season, that was a top 5 pick. So if you can get him here at 18, Olu Fashanu, who's got some raw tools, big, better in pass protection, and he's in a run. But he needs some help, refining some mechanics. But boy, if you can get someone that size and length and that athleticism too, you go for it here. And they did sign help last year for Joe Burrow at tackle. They got the left tackle from Kansas City. Also slipped my name here. Orlando Brown Jr. So that's who they got last year, and he was solid. And we could see it's hard to say Chiefs missed him because they were somehow able to replace him, but he did a fine job. But they've kind of been patching up. Jonah Williams is gone. So they need to always help an offensive line because they always tend to have injuries there in Cincinnati with their offensive linemen. So I think Olu Fashanu fortifies that. You can maybe move Orlando Brown to right tackle then, or vice versa. You have your bookends there at tackles solidified. Olu Fashanu is a value pick at 18. No question. I'd throw in that card immediately. Number 19, we have the Rams, and Bo Nix could have been that spot there for them, but since he's off the board, you do have a need a defensive tackle now that Aaron Donald's gone, and you kind of need to replace that. They've drafted well in later rounds. They haven't had a first round pick in ages, so they're finally getting one here. Kobe was awesome last year at defensive tackle. And they just drafted really well late rounders to kind of fill on that defense and linebacker and the defensive line. But I think when they're staring at a guy at Laiatu Latu, a local guy right there in LA, UCLA, so they know a lot about him. Yes, there's medical history issues with with his neck, but man, if that guy wasn't sort of had a red flag potentially medically, he played great. So it was a couple of years ago that he had that, medical sort of retirement. But he looked healthy to me last year when he was absolutely rolling everyone over and squashing quarterbacks. The guy's a natural pass rusher. He's got all the gears needed. Just one of those fluid, knows how to get to the quarterback, pass rusher, disruptive, he's got the great moves. I mean, he's really a total package deal, is Laiatu Latu. And if you're kind of okay with his medicals, that is an absolute value. And I think a team like the Rams should be, because that's a hometown guy. They know a lot about him. They probably talked to the people around that they need to. They probably seen him a lot. And they could use that juice on the pass rush there, no question. So I think Laiatu Latu, a great pick, just like Fashanu for teams that are in that playoff mix. And these are already playoff teams we're starting here with the Rams. And Bengals basically were one. I mean, they would have been for sure if Burrow wasn't injured, but they were there to the final day, basically. So great value. Steelers, number 20. They like their corners and DBs, and they like their offensive linemen early on, and I think that's where they're going to go here with. And they of course love their linebackers. We know that. But I think offensive line, keep on fortifying it. Last year, they drafted a Broderick Jones from Georgia, big offensive lineman, right tackle there. I think they add to it with Tyler Guyton, a guy who's got a lot of tools and athletic traits here. Not a finished product, but he's definitely almost ready in a sense. And Pittsburgh's a great place to go. So you fortify that offensive line from both ends. Also, for Russell Wilson, who's starting to get up there in age, but still can sling it. Or Justin Fields, if he gets on the field, and mobile Justin Fields. You need those offensive linemen to protect. So it makes sense. AJ Guyton's the guy that they can mold and probably starts from day one too. 21 Miami. They need some help. They had a lot of roster turnover there. Had some salary cap issues, had to really turn over the roster and fill in spots. Xavier Howard is gone. They're kind of linchpin of their defense. And I think you're going to go for the guy that They had a lot of injuries. Jalen Phillips, they were kind of injury ridden, and you lost some really key guys too, but they've replaced them with some solid veterans. So it's been an interesting offseason. Um, you lost Wilkins to the Raiders, one of your defensive stalwarts there, but you added some, you plugged in holes. You did a good job. Um, Greer did a great job here, their GM, filling in for the guys they lost, with some experienced guys. They did add, I think it was Micah Hyde from Buffalo, or the other guy, Hyde and the other DB. But that's just a temporary move here to kind of replace, Xavier Howard and shore up this secondary. They also could use, they do have Jalen Ramsey there on that defense, kind of the most dependable guy now, even though he came off an injury last year. But I like the move of Cooper DeJean here to that secondary. Adam with Ramsey, and then geez, I forgot which Buffalo guy that they added. Hyde and the other one. I don't think it was Michael Hyde. I think it was the other one, but you know who we're talking about here. But add Cooper DeJean, super versatile. The guy can do it all. Can return punts, which is something going to be a big focus now this season, and kickoff returns are back. Basically, Cooper DeJean is a do-it-all. The guy has got great tape. He comes from Iowa, super athletic. Iowa defenders and players usually hit in the NFL. That Kirk Ferentz program really brings out some good NFL players. So you're getting guys that are ready for the big show. Cooper DeJean is that guy, that versatile kind of Army Swiss knife in the secondary. Could be a safety. A lot of teams like him as a safety. Could be a corner. And Miami's that good spot here. You can kind of fill in. You want him opposite. You want him in a slot. You want him opposite Jalen Ramsey. Do you want him in a secondary? He could probably play all three positions. Depends how you utilize them. And I think they'll find a way there. They're having a new defensive coordinator coming over from Baltimore. So that's a place that you're used to versatility on defense, especially in a secondary. So that'll be a great way utilizing a guy like Cooper DeJean here. It makes a lot of sense to me in Miami in that versatile team. Number 22. So this is the spot where the Vikings have traded with Philadelphia. So they're gonna have back-to-back picks because they traded also with Houston to get that other gave up their 2 second rounders this year and next year to get into 23 here with Houston. But the Vikings, man, at 22, 23 here, back to back, and they recoup a second round pick by trading up with Philadelphia here to 12 to 11. I like that. So they have and if the board falls out the way it is, and you're at 22, and you have a guy like Jared Verse still staring at you, and after you lost your, they got Jonathan Grenard signed, but they did lose their top pass rusher here to Houston, so they kind of swapped pass rushers here this past offseason. Jonathan Grenard had a great season. Will he replicate it is the question. You lost a guy in Danielle Hunter, who was an absolute stud every year, and you're getting double-digit sacks. But Jared Verse and Grenard, put them side by side, opposite ends, bookend them like that. Man, that's some juice. And yeah, you're getting a disruptor, a violent player here in Jared Verse, a strong powerhouse coming off the edge. That's a nice way to replace the Neil Hunter, especially if Grenard might not be that guy. But if he is that guy, boy, you have 2 disruptors here in a division that you really need pass rush. You're going to have Caleb Williams in this division, Jared Goff, Jordan Love. You need some juice and pass rush, and you have 2 sort of different guys here coming off with Grenard and Jared Verse. I think Jared Verse, great value at 22. You got to take him. There's that production that he had from Florida State. Yes. Especially since they need someone on defensive end. Now they added the next pick. What else you do? Hey, let's just shore up this defense. We're not getting a quarterback here because we missed out on the top 4 guys. Bo Nix wasn't worthy, taking an 11 for them. Neither was Penix Jr. So you know what? The draft board didn't happen the way we wanted to. We're gonna kind of punt on a quarterback this year, and we're gonna go into next offseason either chasing a top quarterback free agent through trade or free agency. Maybe Dak Prescott's going to be available. It just seems like every year we're getting a quarterback here available. So every offseason you have a chance to get a quarterback, or they'll be drafting up high again in a draft, and we'll have their potential, selection there. Quinton Ewers or whoever else might be coming out next season. So I think they punted for 1 year, give Sam Darnold a chance to see if Kevin O'Connell can make any magic with Sam Darnold and maybe revert him. He's a high, top 3 pick in the past. Came now from San Francisco with Kyle Shanahan. Maybe he figures something out here. And if that's the last stand pretty much for Sam Darnold to show that he could be a starting quarterback in this league. And I think they might give him that chance. And we've seen teams do that, like Gardner Minshew last season due to injury. Yeah, Anthony Richardson, but then you had Aiden O'Connell playing a big chunk of the season for Raiders, giving him a chance to see if he's it. So I think Sam Darnold, they ride it out and stock up on some premier talent here instead of overdrafting. And the pick is, I'm talking round and about, Byron Murphy from Texas, the best defensive tackle here, left on a board, could easily go in the early teens. And here you have him at 23, potentially even 10 picks where he could go originally. Yeah, I'm taking Byron Murphy and I'm taking Jared Verse, and I'm shoring up that defensive line with Grenard, and you might have one of the best defensive lines here in a few years in the league. Really young defensive line. Defensive linemen are expensive, so our pass rushers, you get him here on good deals. Makes a lot of sense. Byron Murphy would go to the Vikings at 23. Number 24, Cowboys. They've lost some help here at offensive line. Tyron Smith's gone. Some of their their center's gone. They lost a center to Washington, their division rivals. You need some offensive linemen here because they've been kind of dropping, and either through injury or age or just leaving the team. Like they're losing 2 offensive linemen this offseason. So you need to replenish that center position. You need to get some versatility, and versatility. You're looking at Zach Martin's getting older too. So they have the other Smith, the younger Smith now, but you need some help there. And the help comes in Graham Barton from Duke, a very versatile center. Guy can play all 5 positions, really. Ideally, be suitable and most suited at center, probably a Pro Bowler at center, also potentially a Pro Bowler at guard. You could potentially put him at tackle. Super versatile, productive player. That's what the Cowboys need at this point, whether they plug him in at center or guard. They need someone to protect Dak Prescott, and they also probably one of their biggest needs offensive line right now, and running back. But running backs, like I said, round 3 is probably the sweet spot, and Dallas probably will be the first one to grab a running back off the board, and maybe late round 2 or 3. So here you go with the offensive lineman that's versatile. Barton makes sense. Number 25, we have the Green Bay Packers. They always like to go for projects, sort of, and they've hit on them. They've done a good job. They love their secondary guys, always never short on corners in a first round. Safeties, offensive linemen or linebackers. That's what they sort of love. Or even pass rushers. They never go receiver in the first round. We know that. So Green Bay likes to get their defensive players in the first round. or sometimes an offensive lineman. And I think this is the time. They've taken a lot of DBs and linebackers and defensive linemen over the last few years, Rashawn Gary and the kid from Georgia and linebacker that they got. But it's time to shore up that offensive line. All your stalwarts are pretty much retired or gone now. It's a new age and for their offensive line, and you don't have those guys that were there for the Aaron Rodgers sort of ride. They've had a lot of injuries every year on offensive line, it seems. David Bakhtiari is finally retired, and but could have you trusted him? Could you trusted him the past few years? He was always injured. I think you need an offensive lineman, a young one here, to protect Jordan Love. This is a time to go offensive line and finally stabilize and have some youth at offensive line and get him in a first round, in a high round. And Amarius Mims looks to me like a Packer here, a Georgia guy. They love their Georgia guys. So does Howie Roseman, but Green Bay does too. If you look at their track record, you're getting here a mountain of a man, just a ginormous human being here for the offensive line. Right tackle probably to start, maybe can develop into a left. He will need some fine tuning. He's still sort of a project, but you're booking on a traits here. And Green Bay's always maximized guys with traits and projects. And here's one that's worthy of a first round pick, just a massive bulldozer of a man to put it there in front of Jordan Love to protect and make sense of Marius Mims to the Packers at 25. 26, Tampa, what do they love? You see, these teams have common themes of what they love and what they pick. And we know Tampa loves their pass rushers, man. As long as Todd Bowles is there, they're going to be taking pass rushers, defensive linemen. Kalijah Kancey was a pick last year, but they're always shoring up on defensive linemen and linebackers. There's two positions in Tampa they love. Always going defense there in Tampa, and they really don't have many offensive needs. They re-signed Mike Williams. They got uh good Godwin still back. They pretty much got their guys back. And you have Baker Mayfield back at quarterback on a big deal. So you're kind of okay with on the offensive firepower here with weapons. So I think they go defense again, and they're gonna go for those tools, man. They're gonna go for that quick blink of an eye first step of Chop Robinson from Penn State. Not much production, under 5 sacks, I think 3 or 4 sacks on a season. So not much production in college there, but he flashes those rare sort of moves, and that first step is just killer in a sense. So they're banking here with late first round on a potential talent like that, where sometimes you go into teens, you pick a talent like that. Yeah, not much college production, but the size is there, the quickness, the first step is just special, and I think they feel confident with that. The defensive production they've gotten, the guys that they've developed, makes a lot of sense. And especially you lost a pass rusher, you lost your top pass rusher now to Miami, so you're going to need some of that juice. And you're getting that defensive line is kind of getting younger there with Kalijah Kancey now in, and Vita Vea still patrolling the middle. You got Vita Vea and Kalijah Kancey, and now you add a juice like that from the outside with Chop Robinson. A project and it works, but if they can refine it, man, you got a heck of a pass rusher, to replace a guy that I'm also I mean, just so many names out there. I'm forgetting the name of the pass rusher that they lost to Miami, but he was their stalwart. Probably you will hit me later on, but makes sense to replace him with Chop Robinson here, especially value at 26. 27, another guy that just had a great workout, has production. It's just a worthy of a first round pick. And when you're looking at 27 Arizona here, you need some defensive help. If you're going to take Malik Neighbors, yes, you needed that receiver, most important, but you need to shore up that defense too. And the way you do it is Darius Robinson, another Robinson here, going back to back, but get some of that edge help here. They need edge help in Arizona. They need a lot of defensive help, but get that edge fortified. And Darius Robinson looks and sounds like a really good pick here for them, especially if they'll recoup a pick here, with that trade with the Giants. So yeah, makes a lot of sense for me to go Darius Robinson here, Missouri defensive end for Arizona. Now 28, the Bills. Boy, who would have thought they needed help offensively? But sort of the Justin Herbert here thing with Josh Allen, needs weapons, lost a lot of weapons this offseason. Gone is his number one receiver, Stephon Diggs. Number two receiver, Gabe Davis, is gone. And you're left with Shakir, Khalil Shakir. And but he's a number three guy. Yes, you drafted a tight end in a first round last season. You added a weapon at tight end, so you're good there, but where are your receivers? You need Josh Allen to be able to throw more than a number three guy and a tight end, right? So you going receiver here, no question. They need receiver, and luckily for them, this is a deep receiver draft. You can get a menu here of receivers. Do you Lad McConkey? Do you got Ricky Pearsall? Who do you go with? It's Xavier Worthy. What sort of receiver do you like here? I think they like Adonai Mitchell from Texas. Big bodied guy. I mean, there's a Troy Franklin here. There's so many guys you can go with. And I think Adonai Mitchell is that big bodied guy that they could throw up to some lob balls from Josh Allen can throw to him. I think he's a good fit. They definitely need a receiver here. They could also use secondary help too. They've lost a lot. They were in salary cap hell, also just like Miami, and needed to clear out a lot of their vets. And this is what happens when you kind of pay a lot to a quarterback, but you need help, especially after losing Stephon Diggs. I would have even maybe mocked a receiver after losing Gabe Davis, but you lose Gabe Davis and Stephon Diggs, your top two receivers. You just got to go receiver late in the first round here at 28. Adonai Mitchell is the guy from Texas. So number 29, as some teams had glaring needs, like Bills, we just spoke to needing a receiver badly, and Dallas needing offensive linemen. The team that really needs to fill in a slot that they haven't been for a few years, and we saw it in the playoffs how glaring of a need they had in a secondary, especially at corner there, and that is the Detroit Lions needing corner help. Man, Jeff Okudah didn't work out. They drafted him really high a few years back at number 3. Didn't work out. Injuries. Maybe he's a bust. Maybe it was just injuries, but it didn't. He wasn't the guy they thought he would be. And they never really filled in that spot. They had CJ Gardner-Johnson last year, but he was injured for a big chunk of the year, but he's more of a slot. You need a number one corner here, and that's desperately, they're kind of plugging in guys, especially towards the end of the season off the street. You had guys that probably be number 4 or 5 corners starting playoff games. So they need to fill in that spot, and they have 2 good corners. So this mock still staring them at in the face. You could also go defensive end here, help for Aiden Hutchinson, but corner is a more glaring need. And I would go right here. Nate Wiggins is the pick. He's got speed, good testing numbers, got good size for a corner, winning program in Clemson. The only problem here is his slight, frail body frame. He's like 160, 170, low 170 pounds, high 160s. That's really thin, and you kind of worry about, will you be able to tackle big running backs, big guys? Will he be able to come up to the line of scrimmage? Can he tackle receivers? It's a concern with a guy's that slight, not only with tackling, but with injuries. Will he be injury prone? But the talent's there with Nate Wiggins. And, you could easily make a case of Nate Wiggins going in the early teens. But here at the end of the first round at 29, Yeah, that's a value pick. You go Nate Wiggins here, cornerback, to solidify that corner position that's needed for Detroit. So number 30, the team that always drafts great and somehow always ends up um, getting the guy. You know what I mean? Like getting the most value, whether they need positional help, they go best player available, truly always. And they're always drafting by the end of the first round anyway. Um, in the 20s, and the Baltimore Ravens just know Eric DaCosta, that scouting department has known for years how to draft. And once again, they have a prospect staring him at a face that it's going to be hard to pass up just because of the value here. Even they have Lindstrom. I mean, no, Lindstrom is nothing. They just kind of drafted a center, and they're always good for an offensive lineman. Jackson Powers Johnson makes sense for them. Yes, he's a center. He's absolutely a best center in this draft, first round pick, but you could play him at guard. He's got guard versatility. He might not be as Pro Bowl ready. He could be a Pro Bowler in his first year at center. That's how good of a center he projects to be. But he could be also a solid starting guard. So I think whether they want to do some movement around their line, they did lose Simpson and Morgan Moses to the Jets. So there's need there on that offensive line. You just don't know how Ronnie Stanley is going to hold up. He's had injury issues. Yeah, when he's healthy, he's their, unanimous starting left tackle, but he's kind of struggled. But you need to shore up, just add some line versatility, in the middle too. And whether you're replacing John Simpson here at guard with Jackson Powers Johnson, or you're going to put him at center and kind of move things around. They did draft a tremendous guard center a couple years ago. So was it even last year? So they're familiar with making it work, and I think they go best player available, and they'll always turn someone into a Pro Bowler. So Jackson Powers Johnson goes to the Raiders here, makes sense because of the value. They just always get great value. Now we're going to the Super Bowl team. San Francisco, will they pick? No, they won't. I see a team trading back in here. And imagine this trade. San Francisco trades with their former Bay Area rivals, the Las Vegas Raiders, come up, jump back here in the first round and select that quarterback, Michael Penix Jr., who's staring at him here at the end of the first round, get that 50-year option. And it just makes a lot of sense for me for the Raiders to take Michael Penix here, jump into the first round, not risk it, him falling to the second, and then teams having a day to contemplate and jump up to the top to grab him. You're facing more competition then on day two. If you want to draft at the top of the second round here, you're basically in the second round at 31. Trade in, get that 50-year option. It'll probably cost them not too much. They'll probably give them their pick and their second round pick here, and I think that, and some more change, and that'll be it. So makes sense for the Raiders to get Michael Penix, and then you team it off with J.C. Latham, and that's a heck of a draft. And then number 32, the final pick of the first round. Yes, another team that desperately needs a receiver. There are some issues with their top guy, having some issues off the field, but I still think they could go a couple ways here, and they also draft for value. They lost L'Jarius Sneed, and as good of a corner as Trent McDuffie is as a number one, but you need to replace L'Jarius Sneed, and that defense really values corners there. So I think with the depth of receivers that they could probably get still in the second round, I think they're going to go Kool-Aid McKinstry, end of the first round here, a first round talent from Alabama to the Kansas City Chiefs. And of course he'll work because it's Kansas City and they make it work. So that is my mock draft here. Some sleepers that could be here. I think it just depends on the situation you go to. The teams that go to certain situations, could really work out. I think Michael Penix works nicely. Nice fit there with the Raiders, that they like to push the ball and air it out. And he does have that weapon in Devontae Adams. And then you look at, the quarterbacks, Bo Nix, I think would be in a good situation at Denver. I think the way it slots, at least in my mock, it works. Chicago completely, you know, set up the red carpet for Caleb Williams with the receivers and help that they did, and hopefully the projected will trade here for Roma Dunze. So I think a lot of these quarterbacks are going into good situations. So yeah, that's how I see. I think some sleeper picks. I really like Olufashanu with the Bengals. I think that'd be a great pick here. Laiatu Latu makes a lot of sense for the Rams. So yeah, there's stuff here that's going on, and and there's going to be some busts and things that don't work out, but you have a lot of talent there, especially receiver in a second round. Some guys will not make it into the first here that are projected. Also, you're going to have your pick of the litter at linebackers and all that. But that's my mock draft. A lot more talk about. I'll probably do a written version, maybe more detailed here, but hopefully enjoy the 24 draft. Should be a lot of fun. Should be exciting. A lot of trades I see in the top of the draft. So happy draft time, everyone. Make sure to subscribe. Helps a lot when you click that subscribe button. Doesn't cost you anything, but being a subscriber is awesome. And it's really something I hope to get here. So please subscribe, like if you like this, give it a thumbs up, and like this video, and of course comments if you have draft thoughts, whatever you're thinking there. You like some of the picks, you don't, let me know in a comment section. Look forward to hearing that. And of course you can follow me on social media at the Jim Alexander. That's TheJimAlexandr. That's on TikTok, X, Instagram, and of course also on a place like yeah, social media. And of course, the Real Talker. Geez, I'm losing my stuff. The Real Talker at on social media too. So those are places. And until next time, I'm out. Draft time. Let's go.